Hello, everyone. Happy holidays. Welcome to the Radical Edge of HR. And I, of course, am your host, Tanya Holly. And I'm so excited to be with you once again in this holiday season. And of course, we've got a great topic for you today, and it is holiday inclusivity. So, I always bring the experts, and I got them here again. So, let me introduce you to our panel today. And we have a new face for you for me to introduce. Hey, Jen. I love
Hello,
it.
Tanya. How are you?
I'm great. Welcome to TRE. We're so excited to have you. Let
Thank
me go ahead and get our other panelists here, and I'll let you all officially introduce yourself. Now, you all know this face, one of your favorites, one of my favorites, and it is Ama Agayapang. I said the last name this time. I don't usually say it. Did I get it right? Did I say it right?
You were close. Ajapong, but we good.
Oh, I wasn't close, y'all. That's why I don't never say it. But anyway, welcome back, Alma.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, Jen.
Hi, how are you?
So,
Wonderful. Wonderful.
thank you both so much for joining me today on another TRE. Jen, would you just go ahead? I'm gonna let you each do this and just officially introduce yourself because you're a new face for everybody.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I am Jen Torres. Pronouns she, her, ella. For those who may have visual disabilities or low vision or anything like that, I am wearing a black turtleneck. I am a Latina with big gold hoop earrings. My hair is black up in a bun, and I'm excited to be here with you all today. I am a DICE facilitator. I get to work with Alma all the time here at HRKS. I've been with HRKS for over 6 months now. Y'all need to give me a little celebration anniversary. I'm almost there, half year.
That's right.
And
I
so,
love
yes,
it.
I've been doing DEI work for over 15 years in school districts, corporate, nonprofits. So it's been a lot of fun doing it. And now I get to do it with HRKS with some brilliant humans. So I'm excited to be here and chat with y'all a little bit more deeply today. Thanks for having me.
Brilliant
Yeah.
humans. Thank you, Jen. Welcome. We're so happy to have you. And Alma, if you could please officially introduce yourself.
Yeah. So thank you, Jen, for the reminder of the description. So
Uh-huh. That was
hey
great.
everyone, I'm Ama Ajapong, been with HRKS almost 5 years now. Super excited to be here chatting about all things diversity, inclusion, culture, and equity. I am wearing a red sweater, white shirt. I also have big hoop earrings on, but you can't see them because of my background. I have on brown glasses. I'm a black girl with red lipstick and a shaved head. So really excited.
I love
Excited.
it. I love it. I
Thank
love
you so much. Excited to have this conversation.
Awesome. So if y'all didn't realize by now, we have our diversity experts here. And for those that didn't catch it, Jen has said DICE, and DICE stands for Diversity, Inclusion, Culture, and Equity. So I wanted to define that in case some people were not aware. And that is one of our centers of excellence that we have here at HRKS. And they both are in that area. So let's just dive in. As I said earlier, our topic today is holiday inclusivity. And wow, it's tis the season already. Year's almost over, and we are right in the midst of holiday season, and we want y'all to be able to do it correctly. So let's go ahead. And the first question, and Jen, I'm gonna let you answer this first one,
Yep.
is what does holiday inclusivity mean in diverse workplaces, and why is it important?
Oh, yes. This is a fabulous question. Thank you, Tanya. I think it really just means recognizing and honoring the diverse ways in which people experience or celebrate or don't celebrate holidays, right? So, how are
Mhm.
we actively thinking about how we foster this sense of belonging by really validating all cultures across the board, all religions and personal practices? So, how are we actively looking at that through this sort of multicultural, sort of multi experience lens to really ensure that no employee is feeling marginalized, especially during this sort of holiday season where a lot of different folk are celebrating a lot of beautiful things, and really want to bring that experience to others and perhaps share how they celebrate that and how they connect with their community and other people. So I think that's really what holiday inclusivity means. And it's important because it creates belonging, right? Like we all want to share about who we are, where we come from, what our identities bring to the table. And so we want to be able to share that with those around us, especially during this time when we're all actively really thinking about belonging, community, right? And how we celebrate all of that.
Yes, thank you for that.
Yeah, of
That was
course.
a great explanation. So, Alma, I'll ask you this next one. How can organizations actually create a culture where all employees feel valued during the holiday season?
I want to look at this from two different lenses. So one, a policy lens, and then two, a personal lens. So
Okay.
from a policy perspective, what does your time off look like? Typically,
Mm,
organizations here in the US have set holidays off, but those holidays are typically Christian holiday focused. And then companies will often give floating holidays, but it's usually like one or two. And sometimes that doesn't align with all the holidays that other cultures have. And so looking at your policies and practices to say, what can we afford to give off? How many floating days can we give off?
mhm,
And what are our practices during those holidays? So is it heavy meeting time? Is it not? Are we
mhm,
going to acknowledge what these holidays are? So from a personal perspective in the workplace, what type of decorations are we putting up?
mhm,
What type of celebrations are we having in the workplace, even down to our words? Is it only Merry Christmas? Are we only saying Happy Holidays? Are we only saying, enjoy time with your family? What about those where the holiday brings really somber times and really sad times? How are we including that as well? And so I think from a practice and also a policy perspective, it is about creating an environment for inclusion and connection, and belonging, as Jen said, but really being intentional with what activities, and what we're implementing to foster that. The other thing I'll say is for everyone out there, holiday inclusivity does not mean excluding what you believe in. So if you want to say happy, Hanukkah or Merry Christmas, it's not saying you can't do that. It's
right.
also not saying that you're assuming everyone else enjoys that, right? So there are inclusive ways and inclusive language where you can say happy holidays, but that doesn't mean you're divorcing yourself from your beliefs because both are beautiful. It's a yes and.
I'm glad you said that because
Yeah.
sometimes I know people are hesitant in saying things, so they just don't say anything, or they feel some kind of way if they do say it. So I'm glad you express that so people can feel comfortable in whatever their beliefs are and saying whatever it is without worried about offending somebody. That's
Yeah,
always.
like you can say in my culture, I would say Merry Christmas right now. Like, what would you say, right? Like, or just say Happy Holidays, which is blanket. Or you can say, how do you spend this time off? It doesn't have to be time with your family or vacation. It doesn't have to be anything implied, but it's just really a platform to build connection. And that does not mean you have to divorce yourself from your beliefs.
I love that. Thank you. So, what are some common mistakes organizations make when trying to promote holiday inclusivity? Because I
I'm like, how many hours do we have, Tanya? I'm just kidding.
not long, 18 minutes to be exact.
All right, well, let's sit down. I'm totally kidding.
I know, I know.
Let's see. I think so defaulting to one, right, holiday or one religious narrative or one practice. I think we know that there are certain holidays that have sort of taken over and certain celebrations, right? Certain dominant cultures. And so really defaulting to that one single celebration is something that folks often do. And I think it's a huge mistake. I think in order to combat that, you can really just create this space of celebrating like larger themes. So we can celebrate gratitude, community, belonging. You can celebrate just these ideas of like holiday celebrations. So really opening that up. And like Amma said brilliantly, you're not excluding who you are and how you come to the table, but you're allowing everyone to exist and coexist in that space. So I think defaulting to a single dominant space or experience is definitely something that I think is a mistake. And assuming that all folks want to participate in holiday experiences or events at your work. Come on, y'all. Sometimes it could have been an email kind of thing. Like, I don't want to engage. And maybe for religious reasons or for any sort of reasons. So really assuming that we all want to do something or participate in a certain way, I think is another mistake that organizations that I've seen have made. And yeah, I think those are the two that come to mind. And Amma, do you want to add anything else? I'm going to hand it to you.
Oh, yeah. The two you mentioned are the primary ones for sure. I will say if you're a leader in an organization and you have different ethnicities or cultures within your team, it's probably a good idea to go do some research on what some of the practices are. So like some of the major ones, do you know when Diwali is? You know, do you know when Sukkot is? Do you understand what Hanukkah represents? Do you know why people might incorporate Kwanzaa as a part of their practices? Do you know, like, just having that knowledge, not necessarily going to those people and asking them 21 questions, but doing your own research and asking them, incorporating some of those people, and how would you like to see this celebrated within the workplace? And so taking that humble approach that you don't know everything and incorporating people within that, because nothing for us without us is the only other thing I'll add. And okay, so this is a side note, but I see this at schools, and I also see this not so much in the workplace, but more at schools, like being very mindful of, if you are going to have Mrs. Claus up or a Santa Claus or whatever, be conscious of race. Like, let's have these different things represent the demographics at your school, because you don't always have to have white Mr. Claus and white Mrs., or do you have a clause that represents different gender expressions? But just being really mindful of what is being represented from a race, a culture, ethnicity perspective, I think also helps. So now I'm off my soapbox, because that one kind of gets me going.
That's okay. I told y'all I had the experts here. Can y'all?
Yes, and I did want to add something that I've seen organizations do really brilliantly is they will provide some learning and unlearning for their organization. So they'll have like these toolkits or these newsletters or something where folks can go and access, here are all of the winter holidays that exist. Here's how they celebrate them. Here's why. Here's the facts, the history behind it, who celebrates it. And then you can actively go in and learn yourself, right? Yes, let's communicate. Let's have conversations. Let's share those experiences with each other and ask our coworkers what they celebrate, and do the work yourself as well, so that when you come back into that space, you can also say, hey, like, I learned this, I know this, blah, blah, blah. Like, how do you do this? I do this. Like, you can have those conversations and really create that true belonging. And your organization has done the pre-work for you. And I think it's beautiful to house that somewhere in your website, somewhere in your HR policies, wherever you want it to live. Those toolkits can exist year round, and folks can go in and out and do that learning for themselves as well. And I think that's a great way to create that inclusivity and belonging, not just for holidays, but all year.
Yes. And I think that's great for companies when they do that, when they're, I often think of recruiting with TRA, and when they're recruiting and people are looking for those types of things, that saying, how do you embrace diversity and what's your culture like? It's showing that you embrace diversity and all those inclusivity and all that stuff, because it's showing that you have that somewhere accessible to your employees. So that's a great thing, at least that I have learned from doing this show and from doing this podcast, I should say. But I think that would carry over very well. And I was going to ask, and you kind of already gave an example, is there any situation or circumstance that you all have experienced or know about that a company has done something that really stuck out, that is a huge mistake in regarding to inclusivity? holiday inclusivity. Anything? I know the schools was a great example. Just be mindful of that. But is there any? You don't have to name anybody or anything, but is there anything that you experienced or company did that you were like, oh no, don't ever do that? Can you think of anything? Examples? I know I caught you on the spot. So.
I feel like there's many, and I'm like, well, yes. I think this one might be a little like controversial. I think when folks are asking they celebrate only through like this potluck idea. Oh, just like bring this type of food that you cook all the time, and they sort of expect that you can bring something. So for example, Latino culture, we're not a monolith. We all cook different foods. We cook, holiday food looks different in every single Latin American country. And so, I've had folks be like, oh, you want to bring tamales? I'm like, I don't make that. It's not a part of who I am or my culture. So I think it's a beautiful idea because, hello, I'm Puerto Rican. I love food. We love to cook. We love to feed people. And there can be a hit and miss there as well because we're not a monolith, because we don't actively all engage in those same ways. Yes, it's similar, and it can also hinder what you're trying to accomplish, which is that feeling of belonging. So I think being really mindful of how you approach those celebrations that feel really good, right? Like some folks are like, wow, this is such a great way to do and create community. And I think it can also turn into this, microaggressive type of conversations that arise, and a lot of unlearning that has to happen that now I have to do in this space, and is making me uncomfortable. So I think moving away from those sort of stereotypical ways that some organizations think celebrating inclusivity through the holidays works, be more creative or really engage with your folks to really understand more deeply how they engage in the holidays. So I think that's I feel like it's controversial because folks love it, and then I feel like this,
No, that's a good point. I think individuals can learn from.
But Jen, what I'm hearing you say is, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not hearing you say don't do potlucks. I'm hearing you say be intentional with how you do it, and don't just assign foods to people that you think is associated with the culture. So just for people listening, I don't want you to walk away and be like, oh, now I can't do potlucks anymore. Like that is not what Jen is saying at all. I'm hearing you say be very intentional with how you do it, because it could be another miss.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And don't be afraid to ask questions. There are folks, you have friends, you have Google, you have ChatGPT, you have so many things that can help you like really get it right. Like
I like that.
Ignorance is a choice. And right now you don't have to be in that space. You have plenty of outlets to figure out how to be inclusive. And of course, ask your bestie, ask someone that you feel safe around, and ask Google and ChatGPT. You'll get it.
And I think people would appreciate you asking rather than assuming.
Yes.
It would have been much nicer if someone had come up to you and said, hey, do you fix this type of food? Is that in your car? I love these. Do you make those?
Or just what would you like to bring that represents you? Right.
But if somebody had, they may have thought, I'm asking this because I love those, and I'm hoping you're bringing them because that's a question. They're making the assumption, but if they just asked you, just tell you, I love those. Do you happen to make those? You say, then the conversation starts and they learn. So you have to remember, I'm the outside person here. You guys are all into so I speak from the person that's from the outside looking in. I could be more like the people. I would never do that, but I'm just saying, you don't realize sometimes what you're doing or saying. So I'm glad you brought that up. That was a very good point, and I think a good example. We're not going to have time to answer all the questions that we had today. We actually have touched on quite a few because I was going to ask for tips, and you've given quite a few tips already. So that's great. I do want to acknowledge we have a few comments over here. Cecile is here. Hey, Cecile. Is Cherie's here? Thanks for joining us. Cecile was saying great points, Jen, in the beginning. And Cherie also was saying excellent point, Jen. There are cultures working cultures.
Yes. Yes. What a great way to say that. Yeah. Exactly.
And then Cecile saying, she was agreeing with us, it's better to ask than to assume. She was repeating that. So she's reiterating that comment. So thank you all. And anyone else, feel free, if you have a question or comment, please put in the chat. We have a few minutes left. Let me ask this. Let's move to the leadership and policy part of this. So what role do leaders play in setting the tone for holiday inclusivity? Ooh, couldn't get it out. Alma, you want to start with that one?
I think we should start with what are we trying to accomplish with this? Is it just a tradition that we always do, or are we really trying to land something? Is this in alignment with our strategic plan, which typically it is, with a culture of inclusivity or an open, inviting workplace culture? But then after that, the next question should be who, not how, because the who is going to inform the how. So who needs to be included in these conversations so we can really implement this or create what needs to be done for our organization. And so I think committees are incredibly important for any type of planning, right? The other piece is there needs to be a cadence on when the conversation starts, and that should happen in the strategy piece, because the cadence also can prevent bias from happening. If I'm rushing to hurry up and have this conversation, that shows that these people are not top of mind, or inclusivity is truly not top of mind. And that's when you check a box. That's when your bias kicks in. That's when you make mistakes. And so there should be a cadence on how often are we going to meet? When do we start the planning for this? Who should be involved? And even after we think about the who, ask why, because typically it's going to be our go-to people or the people we're the most comfortable with as who, but those aren't always the people who are going to challenge us. And so really creating that environment as leaders to set the stage for what we would need to do to create holiday inclusivity in the workplace. I could keep going, but I'm going to stop there and toss it over to Jen to see if there's anything you want to add.
Just brilliant. +1 on all of that. And I think really continuing to get that feedback cycle. So reaching out to all your employees. Can you send a survey? Can you actively ask your ERGs to be a part of the committee? Are they going back and forth and understanding what your practices look like, and really making sure that those diverse experiences and folks with intersectional identities are in the room, in the conversations, and really just being the model for the work. So if you're actively wanting to be a leader who really creates that inclusivity, then how are you actively a part of that entire process? And how do you actively create open feedback so that everyone feels like their voice is being heard? So I think that's all I would add. I think Almost said it brilliantly.
Great. Thank you both for that. So our final question, and I also have an addition to it, or part two to the final question that I thought of just now. Are there ways to include holiday inclusivity in an organization's broader DEI strategy? And what if there is no DEI strategy? Like, what if it's been canceled? We no longer do that. How would you incorporate something like this if there is no strategy? Because we know that's something that's current and that's going on as we literally speak. So there you have it. Look at Alma smiling. She ready to dive into this one. I could tell by the smile. Go ahead, and then we'll let Jen. And I just want to say 3 minutes. Sorry. I just want to say that.
Okay, sorry. Because you got me back on my soapbox. Y'all, lean in. DEI is workplace culture, okay? So whether you have a DEI strategy or not, whether you're scared to say the word Black, it does not matter. DEI is workplace culture. You have to show people you care about them. You honor their strengths. You honor who they are. You honor what they bring to the table. That is workplace culture. So please do not let "we can't even say DEI" stop you from thinking about someone else and being considerate and giving a doggone about how they feel when they walk into your workplace. So having said that, it starts from the beginning. It starts from the beginning of when you're talking about the strategy piece. I'm going to stop there because I get really riled up about DEI and what we're allowed to say and what the work is. At its very core, we're talking about an engaged audience, an engaged people, a workplace environment that is suitable for someone to work in and that they feel cared about. That is DEI. Okay, Jen, I'm gonna toss it up.
I was like, come on, I was like, cheerleader, keep going, Alma, keep going.
Like,
Listen, and I think you're right.
I'm going to ask.
Oh, go ahead, Tanya. Sorry.
No, I was just saying, go ahead if you have something to add to that. Go ahead.
Listen, all I was going to say was that, the language shifts and the language changes and the work is the same. It's exactly what Amma is saying, right? You are actively trying to create a place of belonging with a group of folks who are from all across the world, intersectional identities, and so intersectional experiences. And your job as an organization is to make sure that everyone is cared for, everyone feels safe, seen, and heard. And we all as individuals want to be seen and want to be heard. And that's at the core of like who we are as humans. And that also is DEI. So if your organization is backing down or backing out or has never had any kind of DEI work or mission statement, you still are actively doing the work. You just have to find the right language that supports the work. And how are you actively supporting your people in that space and making everyone feel that it's a space of belonging? So, and of course, we could be here all day talking about this, but I will stop my soap opera. Soapbox? What did you say? Soapbox? Soap opera? I'm like, telenovela, what? No, that's not right.
Thank you. Thank you both. That was awesome. I truly appreciate your expertise and you joining me today. Thank you so much for coming. In closing, in 15 to 30 seconds, let me put a timer because but is there anything that you just want to say in closing to sum up everything? Amma, Jen, if not, it's okay. We've talked about a lot, but if there's something that you would like to close or end with, feel free to do that now because we are at the end of our time, ladies.
I'll end with nothing about us without us. And that can be cultural, that can be ethnic, that could be employee based, that can be any identity that you can think of. It is so important to gauge other opinions, that feedback loop, all of those things, because at the end of the day, we got to ask ourselves who's being served and who's not being served. And do we care about who's not being served? So let's continue to actively work so everyone can be served in a certain capacity within our workplace.
Yeah. It's beautiful. And all I'm going to say is I'm going to repeat myself. How are you actively seeing and hearing everyone in your organization? And that's where you can start.
Great. Thank you so much. But that's all we have today. Thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, additional questions, or a need for someone to help you at your workplace, at HRKS, we know HR, we know diversity and culture, we know workplace, we know recruiting, we know HR, y'all. So if you need help with that, please contact us. Reach out, follow us, HRKS LLC on all our social media platforms. Our website, feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to just have a conversation with you. And with that being said, on behalf of HR Knowledge Source and all of us, we want to wish all of you happy holiday season, happy, prosperous, healthy, blessed New Year to everyone, because we won't see you again until next year. So thank you everyone for joining us. Have a great rest of your day, rest of your year, and we'll see you in 2025. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you, everyone. Bye.